folks, hope your rain boots are ready because we've got consistent showers from today all the way up until next week. Now, Monday through Friday, you can expect
don't mind me.
7 inches
I'm
of
just
rain.
catching up on the weather.
Headed into the weekend, precipitation stays high.
Rain, am I right? Such a touchstone of cultures the world over. You know, given this forecast, I think I'll go outside and enjoy some rain right now.
And of course, rainfall will begin to taper off in this, well, 133,000-mile radius surrounding Arizona, which we can assure you will stay as dry, desolate, arid, barren, stark,
Well, I've been left no choice. I'm gonna have to do to rain what I did to my personal fulfillment, dreams, and long-term goals. Replace it with video games.
In my experience, rain can serve two different purposes in video games. It can function as a mechanic, or it can simply be there for aesthetic purposes. There's also this little sliver in the middle of this hypothetical Venn diagram, where rain both accentuates a game's art design and adds an interesting twist to gameplay, but we'll talk about that more later. For now, I want to focus on a couple games that used rain rather artfully, starting with Undertale, the indie hit released in 2015, was a game that resonated with me immediately upon playing it. I spent my winter break that year chipping away at the game, and of its many strengths, the ones that stuck with me the most were its art direction and writing. The environments are simplistic yet vivid, with sprawling backgrounds that bring about the sensation that the world you're traveling through is much larger than the parts of it you see playing through the game. Every character interaction had me smiling ear to ear, yes, even ones with him. And the game's ability to turn this tone on a dime to create some genuine dramatic tension always delighted me. It's only fitting then that one of my favorite scenes from Undertale features a showcase of both art design and writing by means of rain. The scene starts during the final stretch of the trek through Waterfall, the game's third environment. The first sign of rain comes in the form of this forgotten statue, left abandoned beneath the constant drizzle of rain. In the next room, the downpour really picks up, and you run into Monster Kid, an aptly named child who has been tagging along with you rather blindly as you've progressed in your adventure. Every now and again, he'll stop to make conversation and then run to catch up with you as the two of you push through the rain together, and it's really quite endearing. Finally, the rain stops for a moment, and you and Monster Kid are left silhouetted against the glimmering crystals on the cavern ceiling. The horizon is occupied by the King's Castle, the place where your journey will end, no doubt. This is one of the most striking images to come out of the game, and a lot of that is because of the bold colors, the sudden absence of rain, and the narrative significance of the area. But it's not my favorite piece of the game. See, there's a bucket of umbrellas just back before the rain starts, and if you take one and bring it to the forgotten statue, something happens. With rain no longer coming down on top of it, a music box within the statue starts to play. It's a small, quiet moment that really reflects the kinds of feelings that Undertale gives me, and I don't know if I can put it into words. If I could stop bearing my soul for 3 seconds, I would also love to talk about Donkey Kong Country. More specifically, the two entries in the series developed by Retro Studios, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country Returns. I have a whole truckload of things I would love to say about these games, but that would take a while, so I'll summarize my thoughts.
Oh, my God! Jump on the dude and look at this big boy.
Bird up.
Long story short, these games are drop-dead gorgeous, and they use rain in a lot of interesting ways. We'll start by talking about Tropical Freeze, as its use of rain is merely for aesthetics. Don't lower your expectations, though. When I say aesthetics, I mean aesthetics. Midway through the second world, players will reach my personal favorite level, Sawmill Thrill. The level drops you in the middle of this stunning birch forest, the greens and oranges of the forest playing off of the gray of the rainstorm to create some stunning scenery. As Donkey Kong hops in the minecart, players can make out the forest stretching out into the fog, and then suddenly, you're inside a lumber mill. And even though it's full of dangerous equipment, actively endangering Donkey Kong's well-being, which, as I'm sure you know, is something very important to me, it feels cozy compared to the cold-looking outdoors. The walls are a burgundy, with dimly lit windows hardly letting in any light compared to the orangish glow from the interior. Then, all of a sudden, you're back outside, skipping across the lake, the shoreline barely visible as thunder lights up the sky. Donkey Kong slides through dams, across aqueducts, and further into the lake, the rain pounding down all the while. After one last gauntlet through the sawmill, the player is launched off the cliffside and is given a stunning view of a fog-drenched canyon, treetops and rock formations barely poking through, and then the level is over. As quickly as it began, it throws so much scenery at you in an on-rails section that you'll never be able to appreciate it all in one playthrough. In all honesty, the grandeur of the backdrops in this game adds some serious Taking a 4-year step back, it's time to take a look at how Donkey Kong Country Returns uses rain, as it serves as more than a mere weather effect this time. Level 2-5, Stormy Shore, makes use of its storm motif to introduce some twists into the gameplay. From an artistic perspective, the player guides Donkey Kong into the dangerous waters of a giant killer octopus, bobbing and weaving in and out of humid caves and atop the wreckage of forsaken ships. All the while, a storm brews in the background, the skies darkening with every passing moment. This all culminates in a great moment of spectacle, where a thunderclap ignites the sky, rain begins to pour, and the player must face down the killer octopus. However, from a gameplay perspective, the theme of this stage seems to be designed around its mechanics. The wrecked ships that Donkey Kong hops across splash turbulently in the stormy waters, a staple of this level that wouldn't make sense without the rainstorm. Similarly, the conflict with the octopus would seem much less intense, set in, say, a bright, sunny, arid, dry mistake of a state. The rain is just as much an important part of the level as the moment-to-moment gameplay.
While more story or gameplay-driven titles like Undertale or Donkey Kong Country can't really do a whole lot to implement rain into the core gameplay, more open-ended titles that focus on things like real-time strategy or have day and night cycles absolutely can. And what's great about that is while the last 3 games I've gone over haven't really done anything to look at rain from anything other than an artistic perspective, the next couple that I'm going to go over have an opportunity to create something that's both breathtakingly beautiful and has a degree of mechanical depth. And I can't think of a game that better fits those descriptors than RollerCoaster Tycoon. Breathtakingly beautiful. Breathtakingly beautiful. Breathtakingly beautiful.
Yes, the 1999 smash hit RollerCoaster Tycoon is a game that I think holds a great degree of artistic value alongside its more involved park management mechanics. For one thing, what it lacks in stunning visual design, it more than makes up for in stunning auditory design. Scrolling across the expanse of your park treats your ears to a beautiful cacophony of environmental noises, from people cheering and hollering to rides whooshing, all playing their own theme music. It has a very distinct feel, something that not a lot of other games have replicated since. Its mechanics are similarly detailed. Rides that are large and imposing will scare off the meeker guests, who are often going to be the first ones to enter your park. However, you can't just build a bunch of slow rides and expect that to be successful either. there's a careful balance you have to strike in order to appeal to the largest number of people. Combine that with immersive sound design and outstanding mechanics where new rides unlock the more you play, and you've got yourself a good old case of,
maybe I'll play RollerCoaster Tycoon for a few minutes.
Now, that's all well and good, but what does it have to do with rain? Rain takes everything I adore about RollerCoaster Tycoon and cranks it up to 11. Rain adds a whole new level of atmosphere to the soundscape. It plays just slightly louder than the noises of the park, creating a bit more of a soothing environment. Provided that and the occasional clap of thunder, RollerCoaster Tycoon is made up of all the things that make a game fun to play through all hours of the night. But, as I mentioned, RollerCoaster Tycoon does more for me than just look and sound pretty. The rain adds a fun twist to the gameplay. At the information kiosks throughout one's park, players can put umbrellas up for sale. Normally only a couple dollars when it starts to rain, guests without one are going to get desperate, and, well... But that's not the only change that occurs during a rainstorm. In addition to opening up new pathways to revenue, rain will also affect how guests spend their time in your park. Indoor and underground rides will see boosts to attendance, while rides that are entirely outdoors will suffer somewhat. It's a really small touch, but it goes a long way to make your park feel a bit more alive.
Speaking of things that feel alive, it's The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
I don't think I need to sing this game's praises any more than the nigh literal choir of people that have already talked about it. I'll save you the details about one of the most successful games Nintendo has ever put out and just leave you with the fact that at one point, more Switch copies of this game had been sold than Switches themselves. Today, I just want to discuss Breath of the Wild's use of rain and how it relates to the game's impressive mechanics as a whole. And also how pretty it is. Because damn. Breath of the Wild is probably the game that comes the closest to making me feel the same way real-life rain does. The way that water pools up around towns and villages, the way the sky seems to fall down just a little bit, the way the pitter-patter of raindrops seems loud at first and then fades into the soundscape. Whenever rain falls in this game, it's gentle, serene, and sometimes it's dangerous. Very dangerous. This plays into how the use of rain in Breath of the Wild is one of the most fascinating and impressive uses that I've ever seen. See, when it's raining, it has a genuine impact on the world. Campfires, torches, and bomb arrows will all be extinguished in the rain. To a lesser extent, fire weapons will give off a steaming effect. Furthermore, during a lightning storm, the player is limited to using only weapons and armor that do not conduct electricity. Little touches like this are peppered all over Breath of the Wild. The whole game has this incredibly realized ecosystem of things that interact with other things, each in a unique way, all laid out for the player to experiment with. And the effects of rain and lightning are a prime example of how effective this ecosystem is. Beyond elemental restrictions, rain also makes surfaces that Link could otherwise climb slick and difficult to ascend. Lightning will not only strike Link if he insists on wearing metal weapons and armor, but enemies as well. Sometimes even trees in a clearing or high above the surface are in for a shock. All of these things working in tandem do what I think a good game mechanic should do: change the way you approach a situation. Breath of the Wild is, however, one of the few games I've played to leverage an atmospheric element to this effect. I mean, sure, you could argue that RollerCoaster Tycoon tried this, but is exploiting your customers really a new approach? Or is that just how everyone plays RollerCoaster Tycoon? Especially during the ascent to Zora's Domain, when players must work around the rain, The strength of this mechanic really shines. However, my favorite part about rainstorms in Breath of the Wild? When they're over.
Well, that was a fun look at some weather effects. Now, if the Keanu the Game Guy dopamine-o-meter is anything to go off of, I've successfully replaced another important asset of my life with video games. I've successfully replaced another important asset of my life with video games.
Well, howdy there. Looks like you made it all the way to the end of the video. I hope it was worth the 3-year wait. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, as there will be more videos like this one to come. And additionally, please consider adding this particular video to your liked video playlist. Double upload when? Am I right?